Sometimes one of the most tenacious things you can do as a writer is to burn it all down. We pour time, energy, and parts of ourselves into our stories. So how on earth do we give up on it? Persistence is undeniably valuable for writers. We have to work through hard days and days when we feel like imposters, but knowing when to give up is just as important. But it feels like if we quit, we're a failure. And that can keep us spinning our wheels and trying to cover ground down the wrong path. So how do we balance persistence with strategy? How do we know when to give up and when to keep fighting? Today, I'm going to show you what it looks like to give up on a project without giving up on yourself. We'll talk about how to know when to quit and how to keep from getting caught in the trap of just one more try. Because most of us have been sold a lie, and it's keeping us stuck, wasting time instead of making progress toward what really matters. Take a deep breath. You've made it to the Writing Woods. We're having an honest conversation today without shame or guilt, because here we are all doing what we love, telling stories. And y'all, if you haven't found your people yet, head over to writingwoods.com. We're building a community there that's focused on real connection and being honest about what the writing process really looks like. Let's meet a fictional writer. We'll call her Harriette. Harriette's been working on a novel for 2 years. It's really close to her heart. It deals with a lot of personal topics. It can be painful to write, but there are a lot of ideas in it that she really wants to get into the world. So when it gets hard, she buckles down and puts pen to paper. Does this sound familiar? Most of us know the feeling. Writing isn't always easy, and most of us expect that there are going to be hard days. That's part of the process, right? Well, Harriette thinks it is, so she keeps fighting through, slogging through days when writing feels like pulling teeth, until she finally finishes her draft. And when she reads back through her manuscript, it is terrible. And y'all, I don't mean that in the way that some of us feel about our work when it never quite measures up. I mean, it's the kind of bad that can't be fixed. It reads like it was hard to write. Knowing in her bones what's coming, she sends her manuscript to her editor, and her editor confirms this is not worth fixing. The truth is, Harriette got really far from what she actually wanted to write. As she was working, the project just changed, and it wasn't the story she envisioned. And the only reason she continued to write it was because she felt like she had to. The resistance that she was feeling, it wasn't the normal resistance we work through. It was the resistance you feel when you are doing something that is not aligned with your greater goals, that doesn't feel true to yourself, to who you are. This isn't the end of Harriette's story. We will get back to her. But first, let's talk about what went wrong. Why on earth did she not quit when she felt all that resistance? Creatives in particular are fed a very specific narrative of what success looks like. First, we have a young, undiscovered creative who has a passion for writing, for dancing, for painting. They work hard and no one notices, but they don't quit. They keep doing their thing day after day until they break out. People notice. They're a success, and it is all down to persistence. But that is not the entire story. At least not all the time. Let's hear another story. We're in the 19th century Netherlands, and an art dealer has just lost his job. He becomes immersed in religion. He feels called to be a preacher, and he knows that it's going to be his life's work. He doesn't make it through theology school, but he doesn't let that stop him. He takes a position as a lay preacher in a poor mining town in Belgium. There he gives away all his possessions, and he lives in poverty to align with his principles. He feels like he's doing his life's work, but he's seen as too extreme by the church, and he's dismissed. He winds up sketching the miners that he'd served, and he decides to pursue art full-time. He studies anatomy and technique and does a lot of dark, realistic pieces. He believes that realism is the only form of serious art. He is completely unsuccessful, but he keeps trying new things. He embraces color and develops a unique style that we recognize as belonging to Vincent van Gogh. What if Van Gogh had become fixated on being an art dealer or a preacher or on artistic realism? What if he'd said, I will not give up no matter how many setbacks. I won't quit. Once we invest our time, energy, money into something, it becomes really hard to let it go. Even scammers know to use this against their victims. They'll have them invest just a little bit, a little at a time, and folks wind up shelling out way more than they ever would have if asked for that amount in the beginning. The sunk cost fallacy is powerful, but there is another reason that we don't want to give up, and it's just as strong. To understand it, we need to return to Harriette. When she was writing her story, the one she was forcing out and she knew would not be representative of her best work, why didn't she quit? Why didn't she stop and reassess? Harriette didn't stop because she is not a quitter. Her identity is formed around being someone who finishes what she starts, who doesn't give up. She is someone who follows through. And she's been told her whole life that that is how you find success. You don't quit. Her goal is to be a published author. And you can't do that without a completed manuscript. So if she had given up on her manuscript, it would have felt like giving up on her dream entirely. It would have felt like giving up on herself. It would have felt like admitting that she'd failed. And the hard days, the resistance, well, she figured that it was supposed to be hard. That meant she was doing something that mattered. When if she'd shifted her perspective for a moment, she would have realized that the ride was bumpy because she'd wandered off road. Identity is a powerful motivator. It can keep us working toward becoming the person we want to be, but it can also keep us trapped on a hamster wheel. So what should Harriette have done instead? How could she have avoided the situation where she spent 2 years working on a novel that would never see the light of day, and more importantly, one she wasn't proud of? Here are 4 things we can do to make sure we know when to give up. Number 1, she could have looped in other people earlier. The easiest way to get out of our own head is to involve other people. It's not even the feedback that we need. It is the shift in perspective. If she had sent that manuscript to her editor earlier, even just an outline, they both would have realized it had serious issues, and Harriette would have seen that she was trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Number 2, she could have trusted herself. Harriette knew something was off. She felt it, but she made excuses in order to maintain this image that she had of herself and her work. If she had trusted her gut, she could have saved herself a lot of time and energy and been closer to where she actually wanted to go. Number 3, she could have checked in with herself. When we keep our head down and focus on the day-to-day work of a project, we miss the big picture. We get so carried away with tapping out our words, we don't stop to think whether the project even still matters to us. Remember to stop and look up every now and then. I suggest keeping a journal of how your writing sessions are going. You can check in daily or weekly and just make a note of how it feels. Are you consistently struggling to connect with your characters or your story? Do you dread sitting down to write? Have you veered way off course from your initial vision? If so, you may need to step back and assess whether this is still the project that you want to be working on. And number 4, she could have detached from her how. Most of us have something big that we want to do. We want to tell stories. We want to impact the way people feel about themselves and their place in the world. We want to change culture and society. Whatever that big goal is for you, that is your what. But how you do that is not so permanent. One of my big whats is to help writers connect with their stories and improve their craft. I've done that for a decade as a professional editor, and now I'm doing it with this podcast. Those are 2 very different hows. but they both work toward the same what. Your big goals can have different whats as well, whether they're completely different mediums or just different types of stories. Becoming too attached to a specific method can get us in a world of trouble. It can keep us working on projects that are no longer serving our greater purpose. So how do we know when to give up? If we're doing these 4 things, we'll know. Our check-ins with ourselves and others will start revealing problems. If we trust ourselves, we will see these problems for what they are instead of glossing over them. And if we remain attached to our what instead of our how, our identity won't be threatened by the possibility of changing directions, and we'll be able to make an objective decision. And if you have ever found yourself in this situation, sticking to something for way too long because you didn't want to see that it was no longer the right path, you're not alone. Guess what happened after Harriette decided to trunk that novel? She went on to write one manuscript she was proud of, and then she started another. She was confident that she was on the right path. But then she got 2/3 of the way into the story, and she started fighting it, clawing for every word. She dreaded sitting down to write, but she didn't quit. She kept pushing through, believing that things would suddenly start feeling better, until she realized that she had let her plot get far enough off her plan that this was no longer the book she meant to write. She'd wasted months when she should have stopped and reevaluated, just like last time. It wasn't a full loss this time. She didn't abandon the novel, but she did have to rewrite huge chunks that she otherwise wouldn't have. And she spent months fighting for every little sentence when she could have used that time to make actual progress. Y'all, this is a lesson we will learn again and again because we care and because we've been told that never giving up is the only path to success. But that is only part of the story. Quitting strategically or changing course does not mean failure. It means you're learning and moving toward work that really matters. It means you are focused on what you want to do in this world without being chained to the how. And one last thing, that story about Harriette, that was actually me. And the moment I allowed myself to give up on what didn't feel right was the moment I found the story that really mattered.